Are we ready?
Gerald Beck, I think we're ready.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we should let's do a round of introductions. My name is Jerry K. Ward. I'm an organizer with United Health Local 1 Hospitality Union, former airport concessionaire worker at Midway Airport, where I worked for a company called LS Travel Retail for 6 years. I started off working downtown at Overview train station with Relay, and back in 2009, the company lost their stores in the train station, and they had to close down their 3 stores in Overview train station. I was fortunate enough where the company placed me at Midway Airport during a transition, in which United Health Local 1 Hospitality Union was in the process of organizing airport concessionaire workers into the union. That was back in 2009. Currently now, majority of Midway Airport is union now. Most concession workers make a living wage of $14.65 an hour. That took a lot of organizing, took a lot of hard work and effort from both workers and union employees. So that's something that I'm truly happy to be a part of changing jobs in the city, because when I was working at Midway, most workers made anywhere between minimum wage to $10 max. They had airport living wages that applied to workers that cleaned the airports, but not the concession workers. And we pushed the city council to close that loophole to establish the living wage, not just for the workers that clean the airports who have union contracts, but also for the workers who actually serve the food. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm interested to hear, who you are, Connor. I mean, you off to my off to the next side of me. So yeah, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, I can talk a little bit about myself. I am currently a student at the University of Notre Dame. I am a junior. I am majoring in political science and Arabic. I recently interned at CAIR-Chicago, which is how Gerald knew me and asked me to come and give a bit of a student's perspective on the whole reopening. I have some experience with the reopening as a student. I also actually contracted coronavirus in my first couple weeks back. So I have some experience with the protocols that are in place at universities, and I know some of the struggles certain people are facing and going through during these interesting times to come back to schools. So hopefully I can speak a little bit on that throughout this panel.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Farheen Beg, and I am really involved in schools. So I feel I can, probably provide that background. So I am currently, this is my 7th or 8th year in education administration. I'm the director of technology at Butler School District 53 in Oak Brook, Illinois. And I'm also on the board of directors for Carriers of Light, which is a full-time Islamic school and a Quran memorization school in Wheaton, Illinois. And I also consult with a local weekend school here in the Islamic Center of Naperville. I do help them develop their curriculum, and I provide professional development for those teachers, as well as professional development for some of the programs, after school programs for ICNA. So a lot of different organizations. I'm actually, 20 years plus in education. I started off just helping weekend schools. I, originally was working in a private sector in a global consulting firm in IT. And then once I took a break to have my family, I went back and still was in technology, but on the education side. So I've taught in public schools. I've taught at Islamic schools, and now I'm back to doing administration at a public school. So that's my professional experience, and personally, I feel I can speak to the topics that we want to get into today because I have children from the ages of 3 weeks old to 24 years old. So I have children, in high school and college as well. So a lot of what's happening, whether it's the social injustice or the pandemic, it's impacting, my family as well. So that's an introduction for me. And I think next, Chris will be, or Gerald.
Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists, Jerry, Connor, and Farheen. I am Gerald Hankerson and serving as the outreach coordinator for CAIR-Chicago, that's Chicago office at Illinois chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, along with my colleagues, Chris Navarez and Waleed Sakari of the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition. This will be the third installment of our monthly series 2020 revision. And tonight for this topic is really passionate to me, not only because of where we are in our current events, it's really hitting home personally for each of us that's participating. And I'm sure that many of you, this will also be a topic that resonates. Before I share a little bit more about the premise of this event, I want to bring on Waleed to talk about our census efforts, as we always do, because the civics is still ongoing, guys. So Waleed, share with us updates with that.
Hey, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Updates with the census is that the new deadline to complete your census, if you have not completed it already, is the last day of September, which I believe will be September 30th. So if you haven't done the census, you may or may not know the census is going to be the basis of every data-driven decision where you live for the next 10 years. It's going to decide how federal resources are allocated. It's going to decide how your, electoral districts are drawn, where funding goes, how infrastructure is going to be built and directed and conducted. So if you have not filled out your census, you can go do so at my2020census.gov. It's easy, it's fast, it's safe, and it's completely confidential. And it's the easiest way you could invest in your community for 10 years, and it takes 10 minutes. This is also especially important for students, as we're talking about back to school, is that students who may have left their campuses or may have left where they were studying in the spring of 2020 and were therefore not counted in the areas where they would have been had there not been a pandemic, we have an announcement for them. So these areas, these neighborhoods where campuses are, or these municipalities, or these smaller towns or college towns or neighborhoods really, really depend on the census having students included in it in order to get the representation and the funding that they normally would have had. So briefly, to make sure that you count on campus for anybody who may have lived, in university housing, don't worry about the census. Your university has counted you already if you lived in student housing. If you lived on campus somewhere, like, in an apartment or a frat house or any sort of non-university affiliated housing that is nevertheless on or near campus, you should fill out your 2020 census using your on-campus address. So this may, even if you've already done your census or if you went home and were counted at home, you can fill it out again, and then they will use the most updated data to make sure that you're counted where you normally would have been. And if you commuted from home, then just make sure you're counted at home if you haven't done so already. So, invest in your communities and invest in the neighborhoods and the municipalities that support, these campuses and student life. Otherwise, they'll be hurting for the next 10 years. Thank you for that, Brother Gerald. I'll turn it back over to you, and you can guide us through what our agenda will be today.
Sweet. One last thing on the Count on Campus reminder for our college students. Do know that obviously some of you may have been counted on your family census form at your residence by the time you have returned home on April 1st, which is Census Day. The U.S. Census Bureau is in fact very well aware of this fact, but they still want you to still move forward with the census, and as it was instructed and shared on the slide and explained by Waleed, to still go ahead and count the address that you were residing at on April 1st of this year. So even if your family have already included you, or if you were living at some other place and you finished the census there, please again, repeat that census specifically for the residence you were at, whether on or off campus on April 1st of that year. So just wanted to help clarify that. Thanks again, Waleed. So if you're a first timer participating in the 2020 revision series, just want to really help acclimate why we're doing this on a monthly basis. Of course, there's been a conversation about whatever a new normal is supposed to be, but we have definitely seen, definitely in more stark terms with this week, the crossroads of the coronavirus pandemic, but as well as what's happening with racism. So we're thinking about the family of Jacob Blake Jr. Thank God he's recovering, but we know what that means for his sons in terms of him possibly never being able to walk again. But also just looking at the strife and what it means for lives to be safe and protected and respected and valued, not only with the hands of the police or senseless violence in our streets, but also just at what is being protected by our government, our healthcare, and our common sense in fighting coronavirus. So that's what the 2020 revision series is about, just really making sure that the impact on us protecting all our constitutional rights, our social justice, and fighting whatever inequities that may exist, and also our civic engagement efforts. So for this particular event, with the debate swarming around schools reopening, and still to talk about where we are in terms of our employment, our numbers with jobs and those who are unemployed or even underemployed, and even those who are facing threats of their health with the proper protective equipment for them at their jobs. So that's really the basis of this one. What's really swirling around us in this current day and time with jobs and schools. And so with that, let's go right into the first question. And we usually have a series of 3 to 4 questions. And so we're going to kick it off with this one. So for the very first question, thank you. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the uprising following the murders of George Floyd, please share a bit about you and your organization's work over the past few months, and how has your work evolved to change? And so I know the context is going to be different because we have a community organizer in Jerry with Unite Here One, but we also have Connor, who's a junior now at Notre Dame, and Farheen in doing double duty as a board of director and educator in the Butler School District. So not only just want to better understand you and your work, but even if it touches your family life and that what you're witnessing throughout your community. So let's do ladies first, of course. Sister Farhan, why don't you kick us off with the school factor?
Sure. So, there's 2 pandemics going on in a way, if we think about it. And so really, in March, when the COVID-19 situation started, right away, our focus was safety. So, the school where I'm aboard, Carriers of Light, COL, that was shut down. The public school where I'm an administrator, it was shut down right away. So obviously that impacted us. And, the entire, just in a matter of a few weeks, we realized that not only do we have to keep the students safe, but the next pandemic that will occur is going to be about their social and emotional well-being. And we saw that right away as students started going into isolation. And, as we've heard on a national level, remote learning was not going well. So, we started to worry about the regression that will occur with students learning, the effects on their mental health. And while we were still trying to figure all of that out, and and starting to move to digital platforms and providing professional development for teachers and planning on ways to, have students recover, whether, they're in high school and they need to be taking their SATs, or whether they're, in preschool or English language learners. So in education, we're just trying to figure all of that out. And, by the time June came around and the issue of the social injustice and racism that started, that was just a different impact on us. And I feel like some of us did better than others. That started kind of in June. And I feel that schools were already closed and nobody addressed the huge issue that was happening, that we were seeing, on our social media feed of Black Lives Matter. And that I felt like public schools really missed out on that. At COL, what we try to do is right away, we try to just educate our public. So we started, we did town halls, and we started asking ourselves the question of, in this Islamic school, why is it still mostly South Asian? Why do we not have a Black population in this Islamic school? And so we, right away, we started talking about how the curriculum needs to change and how we need our students to be involved and have civic engagement. Same with the Islamic Center of Naperville. Still we're trying to figure out, why is it that ours, we teach our kids faith-based topics, but we ourselves have failed because we did not teach these students about racism and social injustice. Immigrants came to this country and tried to just work really hard, tried to make money, put food on the table. And the way we thought we were going to excel is if we just made sure our kids got educated and send them to the best schools, and that's it. While there was this underlying, pandemic that was being created. And I realized that even, our kids growing up in the suburbs don't have exposure to diversity. You would think they do, but they really don't. So, so all of that changed the way we were thinking about education, how to deliver that education, how to update the curriculum, along with trying to figure out how we're going to reopen schools, because we realized that it wasn't going to be the traditional reopening of schools. It was going to be the remote or hybrid. So when that happened, I feel that, the way, just going back to the question, everyone was scrambling. And I feel that, even now we are kind of scrambling to figure out what is the best way for all of us to start to go back into our workplaces and our places of, education. And it's a different, it's a different solution depending on where you live in the country. Sometimes sadly, it does depend if you live in a blue state or a red state, how they are going to, reopen. The positive in here is that the teachers and the professors, I feel they do realize what the dangers are, and they are doing whatever they can to help their students. But there are even in education, I can speak specifically about education. I know that there are so many people that have been impacted. For example, I have a friend who takes care of an ill parent, and she can only be a substitute because, she can't take a full-time position. So that way she can decide, oh, today is a bad day for, my father, I can't go to work. So she doesn't take on a substitute role. Well, what happened to substitutes? We no longer need them, right? Because everyone is you're just remote. What happened to the bus drivers and the cafeteria workers? So definitely the employment at schools has been impacted. We're also looking at, who is a protected class. For example, I've spent the entire pandemic being pregnant, right? I just delivered 3 weeks ago. So are pregnant women in a protective class now? Were they expected to return to work? All of these issues are coming about, but I'm positive because I feel that, living in the Chicagoland area, we are a diverse community, and we are helping, we are trying to come up with solutions to serve the teachers and all of these other people that have been impacted because of their, employment status has changed because of this pandemic. So I feel like positive change is going to come. And one of the things we could do is vote. So that will, that will impact it. So I am positive. There is a lot going on, but I feel that we will get there. We are realizing this now. Maybe we're a little behind, but I see now all of these different solutions that are starting to come about.
That's, I think, something that's already putting me in mind of agency and how we're moving through and being collective, like solvers for this conflict that we're in different needs and wants and time for us to have a better outlook of whatever the new normal is supposed to be. And college students, I think, have definitely been sort of a test to that. So Connor, I know you went through a very unique experience, like from having to leave campus to where you're at right now. So kind of speak to your experience on this.
Yeah, so I definitely have had a very unique experience with all of this, the shutdown and university education throughout this pandemic, and especially coming back to university, starting to reopen in early August when we were brought back to school. I totally understand what Farheen is saying with the issues of isolation when people start to move to online classes, especially when kids start to get coronavirus. Here at ND, we kind of had an outbreak in the beginning 2 weeks when kids were brought back to school. It's definitely under control now, and I think the university has done a great job of controlling the pandemic despite having kids back on campus. But there were a lot of issues that were raised with kids entering isolation and having to do classes from Zoom and unable to, like, for example, I have been in isolation for 10 days now. This is my 10th day. And I haven't left this room in 10 days. I've been able to handle it okay, but it definitely, it wears on you, and not being able to see other people, not being able to interact with other people in like real life and just over Zoom. So I understand how that is a difficulty that administrators have to overcome. And I do think the University of Notre Dame has done a good job in reaching out to us and trying to make us feel comfortable. But also, as Farheen said, this is not the only pandemic that we're dealing with. We're also dealing with the pandemic of social inequities that are sweeping our country right now. And, well, not just right now, but it's getting more attention right now, following the death of George Floyd. And I think that's something that our campus, I don't like to say this, but I don't think they've done a great job of addressing. Personally, I think the university could do more to try and educate its students on these issues of race and try and diversify the university a little more. I do love this university, obviously, but I think conversations definitely need to be had. As Farheen was saying, with her organizations, she's had these conversations, it seems, and it seems like her organization and her school districts are trying to incorporate these issues so that the kids can learn and the educators can learn, so that we can try and fix these problems in the future. I think that that's something that the university is trying to do. It definitely is making efforts to reach out to our African-American student population and to try and better our knowledge of how we can help in these social issues. But I think it's a work in progress, definitely. And I think all of us need to try and educate ourselves and those around us to try and fight not only the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the pandemic of social inequity that is going around. I don't think any single one of us is able to say it doesn't impact us. I don't think we're able to say we don't need to educate ourselves more. We all do, as people who want to help other members of our community. And I think it falls upon not only administrators and people who run universities and schools and organizations, but also people ourselves, like me, to educate ourselves and try and be a factor for positive change in the world. And I think that's what's going to be important, in addition to trying to use some common sense and be understanding and patient with the COVID-19 pandemic in the future.
So the theme, I think, one of the things I'm getting from what just been shared by Farheen and Connor is that leadership is really critical in how people are surviving this pandemic. And we're nowhere near out of the woods, but one of the things that has been a constant theme and focus for the 2020 revision series is social inequities have always been here. But unfortunately, certain things been more stark than ever as the coronavirus really swept throughout our nation. And so I know the work that you do, Jerry, with Unite Here Local 1 has always been at the various social inequities that impact a lot of people that would be considered essential workers. And that's an upcoming question, but dive into this question here in terms of your work and what you've been able to experience both, you know, with your fellow laborers, with your family, and then just you yourself personally. Got to unmute, bro.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with my family first. With my family, when this pandemic first hit, man, it was just crazy. You know, we didn't, you know, this is all new to us. You know, I'm used to kids being out of school for blizzards and things of that nature, but for us to actually have to experience the COVID where they totally shut the school system down, like it was a huge adjustment for me and my family. I'm a father. To you all who don't know, I'm a father of 5 kids. I got 4 boys and 1 daughter. My youngest child is just made 4 in July. His name is Jay Messiah. I got a 8-year-old by the name of Jaden K. Ward, and then I got Jordan K. Ward, who is 9, and then I got my junior son, who is Jerry K. Ward Jr., and then my daughter Nakia, who's 15 years old. She's getting ready to be a sophomore in high school. With that, my kids had to transition into the visual learning. For the most part, it was pretty challenging because, you know, my kids didn't have enough devices we didn't have enough devices in the house for the kids to do their assignments. So my kids kind of shared some tablets, in which my oldest son, Jerry Jr., kind of got behind on some of his assignments. And within the last 3 weeks of school, we had to push them to get those assignments done. But the visual learning was really challenging because, you know, most kids are like hands-on, and I feel like my kids like to deal directly with the teachers, like being there. It's just something about just actually being in front of a teacher. I think kids can actually feel the energy and be able to learn. But you know, I felt like, you know, the school system did best what it could to, allow the kids to try and learn. But I think going forward, I think they definitely could do it a little bit better, especially making sure all the kids that are students have access to tablets and notepads in which they can use to do the learning. But also it's a strain on parents because, you know, some parents, like during this pandemic, I was actually still working. My wife was on layoff, but we both kind of spent time trying to help the kids out. But also, you know, I got a 3-year-old kid that kind of has a lot of energy that we had to maintain. So we was able to get through it, but it was all new to us. And as far as some of the things, like I work for Unite Here Local 1 Hospitality Union, as far as some of the things in which we did as a union, I was assigned to the airports during right before the pandemic hit. So it really hurt. It really impacted that industry. Travel was down. A lot of members had to take layoffs. Currently, we still have members who are not working. And with that said, like one of the things, we did a lot of great things. We did outreach to members, assisting members with food assistance, filing unemployment, reaching out to bill collectors, creditors, trying to assist them with that. But also, just really trying to keep our members inspired. Like we got this this Facebook Live that we do every other Saturday to keep our members engaged in being a part of the union. We did caravan actions with the board, with the Facebook Live video that we do every other Saturday. Like it's a real great program where members get an opportunity to share stories about their fights, but also we educate our members on what's at stake, like really doing actions to put pressure for the HERO Act to get passed. We did a lot of things, a lot of great things. Even currently now, like with being a member of the union, like you have to work at least 1 month one day within a month to actually be eligible for the health insurance. So currently, right now, with many of our members being out, we're actually trying to help assist them with filing for Medicaid, Medicare, or FQUC clinics. Pretty much they are free clinics in which members could actually start trying to set appointments with, so that they could continue to have insurance. But yeah, overall, it's been a struggle, but we still in it, man. We still pushing to make sure, coming out of this. I know eventually this too shall pass. Coming out of it, that we come out strong. But yeah, I just like to see people win, man. I truly do. That's my heart. That's my heart of heart. I've always been trying to be a voice for those who need someone to stand before them and beside them, and that's kind of who I am as a person, and that's the reason why I really enjoy the work that I do for United Here Local 1. Most of it is really building relationships with, as an organizer, building relationships with members and gaining trust, but also not being afraid to push and challenge them to be better.
Yeah. And I think you hit something for me that I think kind of sets up. I want to approach question number 2 slightly different, because I think you guys have already kind of discussed how, even though there are challenges that not maybe necessarily fully resolved, you're still pushing forward, and you're even seeing how things can be more hopeful and actually making things better as we await whatever is the vaccine and how we maintain our economies, how we maintain our jobs, our schools. But one of the reasons why we chose this topic is because it's the back and forth. Something to what Farheen was saying, Farheen. So to her point, it seems to be really split between if your residence is in a district that's red or blue. Even here in Illinois, which is considered a blue state, for the most part, there was the question about why are we following, based on Chicago, a shutdown. We're good. We don't have that many cases. We should open. Or we are facing a lot of troubles because Wisconsin is open, but we're losing customers. Why can't we open? So there's this back and forth in terms of where we're going to be in terms of getting as close to normal as possible. So with this question on the base that's going now about schools reopening, CPS is still going through their, questions about what they're finally going to do. And in your case, Connor, you were already in school. Farheen, you were already kind of going through the motions with your district and Carriers of Light. And then, of course, Jerry, sounds like you're going to have a handful now with this, the youngest starting school. But how are you guys seeing the outside noise of our state, local, and federal officials really trying to decide what's going to be the best way of moving forward, but it's not all coming together, gelling together? Let me start with Connor first on this one, because you're, again, in this unique position. You'll be voting this year for president for the first time. There's things you've seen that's gone well with your university leaders, but at the same time, you're not a resident of Indiana, so you're also subjected to that particular jurisdiction. So why don't you kick us off with this reflection?
Yeah, so coming back to school has definitely been very weird. We can't do a lot of the things that we usually do coming back to school. We can't have events for incoming freshmen to try and welcome them into our community. We can't visit a lot of people. Some of the restrictions they've put in place we're not allowed to go into each other's rooms, so we can't really see one another as much as we would have in the past. But I think when these policies are in place well and people follow them, which is tough, especially with college kids to get people to follow instructions, they work. I think we've seen that in the last couple of weeks, that our kind of strict approach to trying to keep people masked, keep 6 feet apart, and try and limit exposure has worked very well. It is definitely in contrast to the way Indiana has been treating the virus. The way the university's restrictions on us coming back have been far more stringent than Indiana's restrictions have been. I know restaurants and bars are open in downtown South Bend, so I know people who frequent those places have been going there. You don't need a mask. In some settings, you can eat inside. So the kind of stark contrast between what policies the university has in place and what policies the town of South Bend, 2 feet outside of our gates, have in place, it kind of feels like it could be two different worlds at times. And I think that's kind of indicative of how the country has kind of gone about handling this pandemic, because you could be in Chicago one day and have stricter coronavirus protections, and then drive out to the suburbs and you're able to eat inside in certain restaurants, or you can drive to Wisconsin and basically everything is open. I think it's, I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing to have these disparities between protocols. I'm definitely not qualified to talk about that, but it seems like it might not be the best idea to have all these differing protocols in place. And I think in the future, I think we'll see people adhering, especially with kids coming back to schools on campus. I think a lot of people in that 18 to 22 demographic who weren't necessarily following coronavirus restrictions all that well during the pandemic, I think you'll see them start to follow more as they're faced with their friends actually getting sick and seeing this pandemic in real life. So I think that the coming back to school will definitely make this real for a lot of people. And I think you'll see people more willing to adhere to the protocols that governments have put into place to try and keep you safe. I think that's going to be the biggest change out of my demographic and my constituency, I guess, following this coming back to school and all this stuff.
I feel bad because I'm going to take responsibility. I know everybody's looking at the word effects. It's supposed to be with an E, so I'm just going to point that out because I have an educator who might in her mind call me out on it. But let me go to Jerry on this one real quick because, the jobs market has been really, really hit hard. And though, there have been some jobs come back online, it's still, a very serious, somewhere beyond 15 million people are still unemployed. I don't even know what the exact number for underemployed, but I'm curious about what you have seen in terms of not only in the campaigns that you work on, maybe you're very versed on some of the other areas that Unite here work on. So, mentioned cafeteria workers, people who are in the other hospitality units that you speak of. Thinking about my dad, for instance, who's an electrician. When McCormick Place canceled all its conventions and conferences, he really had no work and had to file for unemployment. And yet now he's working out in Ohio, pretty much to something similar to Connor's point. It's a little bit more lax. What are you seeing? I know you spoke about that to the first question, but in terms of the debates and especially surrounding policy, how has that impacted the laborers that you've been working with?
So right now, and I'm gonna use Chicago Public Schools as an example because that's my current assignment.
Yeah.
Right now, during the summer, CPS has been serving food to students for the most part, most of the summer. With that, they had 200 and like 270 schools that was open. So when school starts back the 31st, they'll open another 450 schools. But we have over 2,000 members. CPS conducted a survey in which they asked workers whether or not they would like to return to work. Out of those 2,000 people, 450 of those people didn't respond or whatnot. And then another 132 people said that they wasn't returning. But with that said, you know, the people who CPS is currently allowing the workers that work in the cafeterias who serve the food, they're allowing them to take extended leaves for COVID. If you have a family member who uh, may have came in contact with the virus, they're willing to pay them up to 2 weeks full-time pay, but also going forward, anything exceeding 2 weeks, they're willing to pay them for 2/3 pay going forward. In some cases, some of the people are willing and ready to come back to work. In some cases, we got some people who may not. But they still will be able to take a leave and be able to return to work when they feel need to come back. But in the airports, the airports have really been impacted. Most of the major restaurants, the full service restaurants, are pretty much not open and running. Most of the some of the grab and go spots are open. Like I talked to an organizer today about Midway, a company called Hudson News, who has maybe 500 workers, not 500 workers, close to 300 workers working for them. That workforce has shrunken dramatically. Currently, they have like 15 people working through the whole company. A lot of members had to take layoffs. But what we have recall rights within our union contract. So those people will be protected for a period of 14 months, 12 to 14 months. But it's been challenging, even in the hotel industry, that's the backbone of the union. People haven't been coming to Chicago as much, in the conventions, the McCormick places where they hold the conventions at. They've lost a lot of business due to this COVID. This has really impacted many of our members, and it's been really challenging. Like I said before, we've been trying to continue to keep our members engaged, but also, educating them on what are some of the things that they can do to continue to have health insurance for those who may lose their insurance, but also reaching out to members and with food assistance, financial assistance, and also helping members fill out for Medicaid, Medicare, and unemployment as well. Initially when this pandemic hit, the unemployment, they weren't prepared for this. I had to do a lot of phone calls with members trying to help assist them with that process. We had to actually have some members call out to Rockford unemployment line to be able to access their unemployment cases or whatnot. So, it was a lot of adjusting that we had to do as an organization, and I think we did a pretty good job. But this COVID situation is like it's not in our control. This took us by storm as people, and we as a whole nation is really adjusting. But with that, we also experienced, Black people being murdered by cops. That's crazy. I grew up in public housing projects where, I've experienced police put guns to my head. Thank God, God was with me. I know I was fortunate to walk away from it. But You know, I've been brutalized by the police before myself. I remember back in before my brother died. He died in 2001. This had to be like in 2000. The police, me and my brother, we had a fight, but the police came and they arrested us and they violated our rights. They beat my brother, put his head in the toilet, spit on him, uh, made us strip naked, put me in the cell and made me sleep on a bench, like with no clothes on. Like it was and this happened in December. Like I felt violated. But my brother had filed a case uh, against the police, and you know they were looking into his case, and unfortunately, you know, he passed away December 13th, 2001, and it was like maybe like a week later after he had passed away, they had sent a letter in the mail letting us know that they were investigating this case, but you know it was kind of like too late. I took pictures of him. His face was scratched up, and his arms was just all bruised. You know, the police, you know, we got good officers and we got bad officers. But, you know, I feel like in this world, man, a lot of people have been taught to be hateful. And, you know, it's hard to deal with. But, you know, I got kids, youth football kids that I coach. I've been trying to teach them that, you know, dealing with the police, you have to exhibit confidence, but you can't exhibit any negative energy because most of these officers, some of these officers out here literally, they have a spirit to murder and kill. That's who they are. And in some cases, some of these officers have gotten away with it. Now that we've been in a time where we got digital cameras that's filming everything, you know, it's being seen. It's been a lot of more George Floyd cases that have went unnoticed, you know. And I feel like the judicial system has failed the African Americans as a whole. You know, we are thrown into jail, and most of that is about labor. You know, I grew up in a system where most of my friends have caught drug cases. You have police officers who came into our community and put drug cases on a lot of my friends. And in some cases, some of them were guilty, in some cases they weren't. But you know, with that system, this has been a system that has been failing us for many years, and it was due to the fact that, you know, prisoners do labor, they make things, they create license plates, they do many jobs, and it's just another form of slavery. I feel like many people have been sent to jail for crack cocaine and marijuana who have records for, you know, and if you look at it, like compared to crack cocaine, you know, crack cocaine compared to powder cocaine, more African Americans who sell it, they do way more time than a Caucasian person who would use or sell, you know, powder cocaine. And there's laws like that have really hurt our community and hurt our people. I'm glad that, you know, some of these states are coming around in regards to marijuana usage. You know, a lot of people have lost jobs and things of that nature due to the fact of smoking marijuana. I'm a former marijuana smoker myself, but yeah, I just think like, man, like, man, you know, this whole system, you know, white system was created for white people, you know, and white supremacy is I want to say it's not, it's a system. Like Black people, we've spent so much time, we have to fight for everything. And this system is deeper than the eyes can see because it really manipulates people's minds and spirits. And, you know, you see police officers murder Black people in the street and get off. Like, it's plenty of judges out there, that Caucasian judges, who don't respect our lives. They don't care about our lives. You look, you know, that guy who murdered Laquan McDonald. I mean, he'll be home in like 7 years, you know. that kid family won't see him anymore, you know? So, and in George Floyd's case, like the way that man stood up with that man, he had no regards for his life. You stood on this man for over like 7 minutes or more. And it wasn't nothing but hatred. And to really change this world, like I feel, I'm not a racist person, but white supremacy cannot control the narrative. It has to step aside and let others take ownership, because white supremacy is basically, white supremacy is, they control everything. White supremacy has its hands in everything.
Yeah.
In everything. And that narrative has to change. It has to change. A fish rots from the top down. We have to, as people, we have to come together and get Donald Trump out of office. A lot of these white people who have been racist for many years have came out the closet, and since he's been in office, it's like it's no type of respect for Black lives. I'm truly proud to see the stance that the NBA players took yesterday and refusing to play NBA basketball, because in many cases it's okay for us to entertain them, but when we go home, I've seen videos of professional athletes being treated like rag dogs, choked, stomped on, by police officers. But it's okay for it's okay for us to play basketball and perform for you all, but you can't respect my life. You can't pass a law that protects me against police officers killing and murdering us randomly, like killing us in front of our kids. Like, what are we to teach our kids? It's okay to get treated like that. And what's going on right now is, Black America is fed up with what's been going on. And it's been going on. It's been a blind eye turned for so many years. And, people are on a rampage out in the streets. Do I agree with people going out and looting? No, I don't. But right now, what's taking place is necessary for the change that we need to take presence. Those people who are out in the streets, some of them have, bad intentions, but you have a lot of good people out there who are marching and truly want to see change. And I'm gonna end that on that note.
It's a lot there because, for full disclosure, I call him Kwasi. We grew up together. We've known each other since we were like preschool and such. So I knew his brother, and so there's a lot that he's hidden there that's really resonating deep with me. And Farheen, I think you alluded to this in some of the hard truths of what it is for the country we're living in now, and not only just seeing discussions between everyday people to whatever debates that's happening in the halls of Congress or our state legislatures, but just right now it's cemented in who's going to be taking over the White House administration, and the vision of the future we're going to really make clear for all of us, especially for our children and the generations to follow. So one of the things that really stood out for me about your roles is that you're in a public school district, but you also with CAIR as a Light, which I'm assuming is a private entity. You also made clear distinctions about other community groups or places that you're affiliated with, like the Islamic Center Naperville. There's a lot to take from the context that you're being a community leader and active member of. So how have you seen these particular effects for you?
Yes, first of all, I just wanted to thank Jerry, because that was really powerful. And, I just think that his experience and what he's talking about really does, need to be told. And so I don't know if I can, provide such a powerful experience that Jerry is talking about. But as far as, what the debates that are going on for reopening the schools and economies, yes, I mean, the disparities are coming out, and those, it is very clear. I mean, for us, whether it was for a private school or public school, there in the beginning there was a lot of confusion because we don't have any national guidelines. We don't have a national policy on this, and so the states were left to figure this out all on their own, and it's taking us some time. We looked at the CDC guidelines, and we realized that those are really general. And as we can see, that those could be very, they could be skewed by a political agenda. Right now, CDC is coming to light because of some of the changes that they've made. And most of the nation doesn't agree with that. California is actually rejecting those guidelines, right? We see that happening in just the last few days. And I think schools figured that out early on, that we can't really go to the CDC because they are not offering any practical advice to us. And we can't translate what they're saying to apply to schools. So then the schools really started looking at ISB, which is Illinois State Board of Education. And ISB was taking their guidelines from the Illinois Department of Public Health, IDPH. And I think that's how we slowly figured out that the states are going to just have to figure this out on their own. And we started looking to them for some policies that we could use. Honestly, how schools really figured out how to reopen or not is when peer groups just started meeting. So superintendents met with superintendents and said, how are you doing this? How are we going to figure this out? Or how is this going to happen? People in my position, like technology directors or other administrators, we started meeting with our peer groups. And then we would come back as a school and a district and decide, okay, how are we going to do this? So-and-so is figuring out this way, and so-and-so is doing it this way. And that's really how we came to figure out and formulate our own policy. And it's very different depending on where you are. So, the difficult and maybe the guilty part for me is to see that, me working in Oak Brook, I see that parents sometimes can, live a very nice, have a nice standard of living with just one income, right? And so you already have one parent that can be dedicated to teaching those children. Not only that, in our district, maybe we provide a $200, $300 Chromebook to every student. Those students go home to a $2,000 MacBook, right? And so I'm hearing about, CPS where students don't have one device, but yet I'm serving students who have maybe 3 or 4 devices, right? And so not only that, but these parents were able to go ahead and reach out to, online schools like Stanford and Harvard and get their students logged onto those classes. They started forming learning pods where their children could be protected because they were in a small learning group and only socializing with a few of those peers. So, they wouldn't be impacted or be exposed to COVID. And they were able to afford tutors. So there would be, 4 or 5 kids learning in one home that being monitored by a tutor that might be being paid $50 an hour. So we're seeing that because there is no national agenda, no national policy on this, not only have states, but districts and just parent groups themselves are figuring out how to serve the needs of their children, right? The populations that are being left behind, English language learners, students with IEPs, individualized learning plans because, they have some learning disability. Definitely those students are still being, left behind. But so the positive is that the students are learning. We have figured out better ways to provide them with the remote learning. But the negative here is that it is just going to widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Because CPS is going to have a very different experience than the suburban schools. And that is something that, we're going to have to figure out as a nation, how to deal with that. We don't have a solution for that.
And again, I love how each of you guys are really help with the segue into the upcoming question. And this is another area that really did something to me as I was trying to really affix, like, how are we going to move forward? So question 3, thank you. So I never heard the term essential workers until this pandemic happened. And when we say the word essential, right, that word means necessary, like important, that there's no way, obviously, that we can move in any type of way without this particular addition to the whole. So I think, for what it's worth, they named the workers correctly as essential. We're talking about some of the fields and sectors that not only in education, but what I'm just going to start calling him Kwasi, Jerry or Kwasi works with his union. But in terms of how we treat essential workers and how we have these certain expectations, but to Farheen's point on the last part, because there isn't a cohesiveness of how we affect policy to provide adequate health resources and make sure that people have tests. And if people are going to be hospitalized, that we have the ventilators and whatever alternative medicines until we get the vaccine. It's written all over the place. And now we have crossed the half-year mark of COVID-19 being in our country. And we now have well over 180,000 deaths with almost 6 million people infected, at least, depending on how the analysts say that there may be many people because they're asymptomatic walking around not knowing it, or in some cases, whether state or other authorities are not fully sharing the actual numbers for fear that it will be even more dire straits than what we are. Because the term is essential workers, Kwasi, I want to start with you. And started to really start thinking about solutions. And you guys already have been discussing ways that from our institutions to even you as individuals are still moving forward working. But Kwasi, what do you see in terms of the ways that it's still things that we have to look out for our workers? And what's more, again, going back to some of the things you just discussed, COVID-19 has really played out the things that have been going wrong with our society, and still also speaks to the promise that we can now, because it's in daylight for everybody to see, no one can avoid it, how we can start really making the best of solutions to fight against COVID, racism, and other ways that people are unfairly disadvantaged.
So to sum that question up in a short answer, I think we just gotta live by faith and not by sight. We as people, we have to put our energy and our efforts into making it better. We can do our part. Part of my part is being an organizer with the union, helping assist members, being inspirational, and also just willing and ready to do what's necessary to keep our members, keep them strong and keeping them, fighting for what they need. Right now, some of the things I think we got to continue to practice social distance. We in regards to CPS, like they're providing face masks, hand sanitizers, and wipes to make sure that our members who are working in the kitchens during this period are protected. But also, I just think, I don't have all the answers. I don't think nobody does. I think, like, at the end of the day, we just got to continue to live by faith and not by sight, and do what we can do to continue to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And, I heard you say earlier, like, Wisconsin is one of the states that their numbers are going up. Wisconsin is actually a state that I had actually visited because my daughter mom stays in Wisconsin. I had to commute her back and forth a couple of times this year. And during that period while we were on shutdown, like, Wisconsin was open. I understand that, they came out and said that they were going to have people to do a quarantine who came from that state. I mean, it's nowhere in the world that you can control that because you got people driving in and out. I mean, you may be able to force people who may take flights into Chicago to quarantine, but I just felt like that wasn't really real. I mean, at the end of the day, like we just got to continue to tell people to wear their mask, practice social distance, keep your hands clean, and continue to do whatever you can to make sure that other people protect themselves and their kids and themselves as well. That's where I stand at.
Man, seriously, that's real talk right there. One of the things that Connor and I always kind of talked about was his life as a Notre Dame student. And upon his return, this is one particular question that I'm so glad that you were able to speak to, because a lot of times, the idea is that, you just go to school, you hit the books, you do your social life here and there, and that's it. But you spoke to something that reminded me of my days at UIC, is that, there's people that are beyond the professors and instructors and the chancellors and presidents. There's the actual custodians. There's the actual people that's working in the cafeterias. There's the ones that are installing the lights and help set up for the events and functions for the student organization. So you're able to speak to that, kind of share a bit more about what you've been able to see with essential workers on Notre Dame's campus and maybe even elsewhere as you return back to school.
Yeah, so I definitely, it's easy to forget being at a university because these people are so good at their jobs. It seems like they're almost like not even there. But we have cafeteria workers, we have custodians who are working their tails off to try and make sure everything's clean and sanitized for the kids to come back. I actually work in the cafeteria when I'm here at school and not sick with coronavirus. And the precautions that have been put in place and the work that these people put in has been nothing short of astounding. The cafeteria currently is takeout only, so they have to provide pre-cooked meals for the entire student body every meal, and they haven't seen any real wage changes for this. So they're really working very hard for the same amount of money to try and help these kids out. And I think it's very good of them that they're doing this, but I also think that they deserve to be paid a little bit more for the work that they're doing. But that's my personal opinion. And
I feel you on that, Connor. I feel the same way. I'm the organizer assigned to CPS, and I just was on a call earlier this week in which they said that they were going to take away the premium pay. My members was making an extra $4 extra during the pandemic, and now as they go back to the schools, they're going to go back to their regular pay, and I just feel like that's disrespectful. I mean, these people actually are putting themselves and their family at risk to serve the food. So I commend you on that, Connor.
Yeah, it just seemed unfair to me that they were doing all this work and taking all this risk and not getting any, help for it during these times that are very difficult economically and, mentally, physically. But in addition to the cafeteria workers, we also have a very large dedicated custodial staff who I've kind of become friends with just because I'm a very outgoing, talkative person, in case you hadn't noticed that about me. And the stuff that they've had to do during this pandemic has been nothing short of superhuman. They have to clean probably 50 times as much on campus, in the dorm rooms, in classrooms. After classes, we were in in-person classes for the first week. We've been online for the last couple of weeks, but when we were in-person classes, they had custodians coming in suits in between every class to spray down classrooms, wipe down tabletops, do all that. And it was good for, the students and the faculty because it made sure that we had a clean environment to work in. It was a bit safer, but it also put a huge burden on the custodial staff because Notre Dame didn't really hire anybody else. They just kind of tried to train existing custodial staff to do all this work. And once again, it put a huge strain on them. And I don't think that we as students or the administration really recognized how important these people are to the university being, able to come back at all in any sort of fashion. And I just think that a lot of times essential workers who are essential get overlooked, and they don't get the compensation or the recognition that they deserve. I know people were clapping for nurses and all that stuff during the actual pandemic, but I think a lot of that has waned off, and we are no longer really recognizing and trying to thank these people for doing all that they have to make sure that we can go back to any sort of real life. And I think that's something that I hope would change in the future.
Whew, that last point, Connor, that was something else, and another reason why I had this question. And thank you, Kwasi, for also the work that you're doing as well. This is something that I think why that term essential workers sometimes felt disingenuous from the likes of politicians and the influential and those who are, shareholders of certain companies. It really, this was one of the main things that made me really angry throughout the pandemic. And so I really appreciate the notes that y'all just shared on that. To that point, Sister Farheen, we rapped a bit about this in advance, and she already kind of gave me her preface of how she wanted to answer this. And it's again in some of the previous responses, not only you share, but some of the echoes from Connor and Kwasi on what it means for teachers. And I'm thinking, for example, the fact, again, prior to COVID, it's not uncommon for teachers to come out their own pocket to provide for their students. My eldest sister, for example, teaches the CPS in grades 6 through 8, and she definitely does random stuff just to ensure that her students go without and that they're feeling encouraged and emboldened to learn, and they don't have to worry about what's happening at home. Farheen, there was a lot that you wanted to share on this one, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi. We did talk about this. So, I will always speak for teachers because I started out teaching, and so even in my role as a board of director or an administrator, sometimes it seems like I'm going to not side with what's happening to teachers, but I have to say, honestly, teachers are being vilified right now because they don't feel safe going back to school. And so when the argument is that we can go back to schools because children don't seem to be, getting COVID, nobody is asking the question about, but the teachers will. And when the teachers put, their safety first, they are being told, oh, you don't care about the children and their education. And my response to that is, well, if the teacher is no longer living, she can't really teach the students. So, that's how I have felt because I am a teacher, and I'm just thinking that, is it worth it for the minimum salary that these teachers receive? Is it worth it for them to be risking their lives? And, I do understand the impact that this will have on children, but I don't think the solution is to risk a huge population of men and women, especially many of these teachers who are over the age of 55 and, have higher risk. And also, not only that, but, what do we do? I referred to this earlier, but I spent the entire pandemic being pregnant so far, except, 3 weeks ago delivering. So, who is in a protected class now? And what are the policies for what vacation time or leave time will be used if one of us gets sick? So I don't think any of that has been formulated yet. And that's still, we are going to see. The start of the school year is happening now. So we are going to see how well these teachers will be respected and valued. I look at, for example, my brother, who is a doctor, ER doctor, and he, is exposed to people with COVID every single day. However, he has equipment that's worth thousands of dollars to make sure that he stays safe. And so when people compare, teachers to doctors, I feel that, well, are we also providing every single teacher with, machines that are purifying their air and, all of those things that doctors have? And we aren't. Or when people say, well, what about the grocery store worker? They're out there, so why can't teachers be out there? Well, the teachers are also expected to make sure that the student is learning and that they're managing these, 20 to 30 to some in CPS, maybe 40 students in a classroom all day. You have to make sure that they not only stay safe, but that they learn. So I just don't think there's a comparison between, teachers and other workers. And, we will see. I'm hopeful that some of the measures that are being taken will protect the lives of teachers as well as students. But I think that we will see a lot more shutdowns, sadly. If we do, at least the teachers will be safe. But that's just where I'm a little bit concerned and fearful. I do have to say that at Carriers of Light, the way we decided how our return to school should be is we really thought about what is the purpose? What are we trying to do? And being a faith-based organization, we said that for us, safety is the most important before education. And we didn't rush into anything. Very early on, we decided that we don't know what's happening. So let's just start remotely and see how it goes from there. So I was really proud of how these faith-based organizations, how they didn't try to force people to go out into the real world when they weren't ready. So I think those organizations have been doing a much better job. The public schools, I feel like we will see. They are learning from what is happening. I just, I'm disappointed with the school boards that have told their teachers that they aren't putting students first. But I think that it is improving. I really do. I feel like the teachers have made their voice clear, and hopefully other people can understand and start to respect them more and understand the difficulty of their job.
On that note, I think again, this leads into our last question. It's a very few simple questions, and that is it realistically safe for people to be returning to school and returning to work? And I don't want to be remiss. We still have again millions of individuals who are unemployed and underemployed. But the fact of the matter is that there's still a lot of places that are not safe. There's still people who knowingly may have or not have the virus, but they're not wearing masks or they're not keeping social distancing. They may still go to places. So moving forward, going into now, we'll be in fall soon. Flu season is going to come back. Temperature is going to be colder, so maybe that could be a deterrent. But what's really at stake for us moving forward, and how do we protect ourselves and our loved ones and just help get the word out? Connor, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, I know my experience might not suggest this, but I think we can safely go back to school, at least in my specific situation with college. I think there is a way to do it safely where kids can come back to the university setting. I obviously can't really speak to going back to work or going back to younger school, elementary, high school. But in my experience in college, I think we can go back to school, because if people follow the guidelines that are in place, the guidelines work. We've seen that here at Notre Dame these last couple of weeks when kids really got serious about following the guidelines and weren't serious about being college kids and doing dumb things. We saw a huge decrease in cases, a point where it's very manageable on campus right now. People aren't really getting sick. I think it is safe, but you need to have that dedication to the guidelines and the dedication to protect the people around you from those who are either in your working community, in your school community, in your campus community. In my case, you need to have everyone on the same team looking out for everyone else, because if you have one weak link, the chain's broken. And this disease is wildly contagious. I can tell you from experience, if you are exposed to it, even for a short amount of time, it's probably going to get you. And because of that, it takes a lot of vigilance. So I think we can safely go back to work, but it's going to take everybody being hyper vigilant and maintaining all the guidelines and respecting the rules for it to be safe. And as soon as that doesn't happen, it's no longer safe for you to go back, and you should start looking at other options for how you're going to move forward with your work, school, etc.
Appreciate that. And again, I'm glad that you joined us, because the last thing I would want is for people to write you off because you're a young adult, you're a college student, as if you don't have faculty to think wisely and to be thoughtful about what's coming on. And so I think you prove otherwise, that if there's, people in your generation, Gen Z, younger millennials, then that's what we have in store to make things right. So appreciate that. Farheen, as the educator, what say you?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a different answer depending on what industry you're in,
Sure.
and what your personal situation is. So, myself, we really are in an intergenerational home. Just, being South Asian, that's how most of the homes are. I mean, I know that's true in many other communities as well. So I really do have to consider that, and then do have to consider the health of everyone else, who could be higher risk. So I think, for someone younger and healthier, it is a risk that you can take, because you can isolate, like Connor is, doing. However, people living, with children and, just grandparents, I think that you really have to think about how much risk you can take. At the same time, it's just not an option for a lot of people, because, they need that income. So it's going to really be a very personal question. Depends which part of the country you're living in, how far spread it is in your community. I think the difficult part with younger students is that they will have a very difficult time following the guidelines. And, for example, we have a student in a public school right now who refuses to wear a mask, and this is a 13-year-old. So he's being, punished for that. And I feel that that's not really fair to him. It's not that he has a health condition, it's just, he just doesn't want to wear it. And so we're doing this new, thing of giving warnings and then a call home, and then you get a detention. And I just thought, wow, the student is probably having a difficult time with a pandemic as it is, and now he's getting detentions for not wearing a mask. So I feel that it is difficult for K-8 to be able to wear a mask and follow the social distancing guidelines. I think it is probably easier for high schoolers and definitely for college students. So every industry, every person really has to look at themselves to answer that question. I think, again, like Connor said, if all of the guidelines are obeyed, it could be safe. However, you can only control yourself. You can't control others. So that's where it would be. That's where the risk would be.
Appreciate that, Farheen. That is something, and that was something that Kwasi and I was also talking about. It's really fascinating to see, how our young people, our children, our kids are dealing with this, and really, being able to see everything unfold, but still, depending what age they are, to adapt. But even still, there's a lot of even adults, that have to fend for their families or other loved ones, and it's all adjusting sometimes on a daily basis to whatever new standards are or what comes into your life. So, Kwasi, what if anything you see from your world that features, and you've been speaking to this too, how it's possible to still move forward, like you said, by faith and not by sight? Gotta unmute, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to join in on this one. I think right now we got to put pressure on the president, the legislators, the lawmakers, the Senate, the Congress. We got to put pressure on them to pass a bill to protect the people. I think they had to put more resources into the schools, maybe hiring people who are just responsible for making sure those classrooms are sanitized, making sure that the students are practicing social distance. But also, like, we as people, as parents and educators and community leaders, like, we got to take a stance and also enforce within our communities that our people that we represent are doing the things necessary to prevent this virus from continuously spreading by practicing social distance, keeping your hands clean and sanitized, wearing gloves is necessary. But also, one of the things that I learned since I've been out on the pandemic, like, I understand that 80 degrees kills the virus. One of the things that I was practicing early on was like boiling water on the stove and putting not vinegar, but lemon and garlic or ginger, and inhaling those things so that that heat can actually get to the top of my nasal system to kill the virus. Early on, I was kind of paranoid, and I was practicing that. And for the most part, I've pretty much been healthy. But yeah, we just got to do whatever ideas that people have with dealing with this virus. We as people got to come together and really enforce them. I think in the airports, like, we got a lot of people that's currently not working. I think the government got to put more resources into the airports and have people that's around cleaning, constantly cleaning, but also making sure people in those airports practice social distance. We can't continue, to be afraid of this virus. Like, one of the things that one of my hugest quotes is like, man, fear is your greatest enemy. Courage is your greatest strength. And I think we as people got to exemplify courage during this period and not continue to feed off the numbers. I know people are losing their lives. We got to continue to protect those people who may have autoimmune deficiencies. We have older people who may have, breathing trouble, heart trouble, cancer. Those people we got to continue to protect. We got to keep them out of the way, until, I think at the end of the day, yeah, this too shall pass, but we got to continue to, the government got to step in and put more resources out here. And I feel like right now it's not enough resources to really, it's really not enough resources. And if we can get more money to create more job opportunities for people to be able to take on this virus, I think we can definitely defeat it.
Man, thank you so much. So our three panelists, again, Farheen Beg, Connor DeLevy, and Jerry Kwasi Ward. It's now the Q&A in our public forum, as we like to dub it. So if you have any questions, by all means, please come through. I know I spotted at least one question and comment during the discussion. And in advance, I'm going to say, unfortunately, Sister Farheen has to go. But we really want to thank her for a really astute observations and sharing her unique experiences and insights. So thank you so much, Sister Farheen, and really look forward to working with you more in the near future, inshallah. So yeah, let me kind of jump back to see the first question, and oddly, this would be Sister Farheen has to go, but this is probably maybe still, I think, something we'll just broaden it to whatever insights and perspectives and experiences that Kwasi and Connor has to share. The question is, the panelists mentioned disparities in policy regarding COVID-19. Is it a good idea to let communities decide for themselves what is best for their students and workers? Or should we impose a one-size-fits-all policy at all levels to maintain a cohesive approach to this problem? So I think you guys already kind of touched on this a bit, but if you want to expound a little bit further, Kwasi, let's start with you since you're directly involved in workers' rights?
Yeah, I think it's like like I said before, this is all our problem. We all got to take ownership and doing whatever is our part to fix it. Putting pressure on legislate uh, lawmakers to pass policies that protect people, but also with those policies and uh, being produced to protect the people, we got to have the right people who have the right spirit committed to doing the jobs to make sure that people are protected,
Yeah.
doing social distance and also, wearing your mask and things of that nature. I mean, it's three different levels to it. You got the lawmakers, you got the people, and you got the owners of the businesses and airports and things of that nature, that in which is in the schools, who the administration, who are responsible for making sure that things are did correctly. So it's definitely going to take a team effort from everyone to make this happen.
Okay. Connor, want to add anything? If not, that's totally cool.
I think Jerry did a great job covering it. I agree with him. I think it's very much a team effort. It's going to take everyone to, kind of combat this virus. I don't know if you can create a general outline, however, to like a one size fits all thing. I know all communities are very different and have different needs. Like the needs of my campus community are going to be a lot different from the needs of, say, an elementary school classroom. But I do think you need guidelines. I think there should be guidelines set out by, if not the state government, then the federal government, regarding these different situations and how people who are working should approach them. I don't think it needs to be one set of guidelines, but I think guidelines need to be established for these different scenarios to give people the guidance that is seemingly lacking right now as we reopen.
And then the one comment made, which I think is, again, something due to limitations, I'm sure we could delve into this a bit more. But I'm glad that this participant shared this thought. It was very important to hear about the unrealistic demands imposed upon teachers and all the other essential workers. I wonder if you guys could just give a brief one suggestion. And again, I know you guys actually maybe already done this. The one specific thing that could be done to show what's really appreciated about no matter all strikes. So yeah, what's some of your thoughts on that?
Can you repeat that again, Gerald?
Yeah, no problem. So just, understanding that that this as phrased here, unrealistic demands imposed upon teachers and other essential workers. So and I know that one of the common things that we've been speaking to is just acknowledging and having respect for those individuals. But is there any one other particular suggestion that you can share for us to really really showcase that respect for them, and or anything else? I think Kwasi, you mentioned, for example, talking with elected officials and such, and make sure they could pass a law or something. And Connor, you definitely made your effort to befriend people that otherwise would be ignored or even disrespected and taken for granted, that helped maintain Notre Dame to be one of the most beautiful campuses in the country, as it's known to be. So any thoughts on that?
For me, I mean, we just gotta really show appreciation, really show appreciation for the essential workers, the people who are on the front lines. I just think, at the end of the day, it's gonna definitely take a team effort, but we also gotta protect those people. That's where I stand at.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, with that, we'll just close with that. Again, special thanks to our panelists, Connor, Kwasi, and Farheen. As always, what we try to do is showcase some organizations that's linked to fighting COVID, civic engagement, social justice, the racism, of course, fighting against that. Definitely want to feature particularly Kwasi's union, Unite Here Local 1. That's specifically for Chicago Metro. They help a great number of important workers in several sectors. You heard Kwasi say the airport, schools, particularly CPS, the convention halls, and so many other arenas. So definitely Unite Here has certain pages related to COVID-19 resources. So by all means, be sure to check that out. And Kwasi, anything else to pinpoint a special note that's featured on Unite Here One site?
Right now we have a program called Bullhorn every other Saturday at 12 o'clock. We share information with our members, but also, we talk about taking on our industries to continue to do right by our members. That program is every other Saturday at 12 o'clock. If you can go to our Unite Here Local 1 page and like the page, and you can also be a part. You could tune in to the station on those days. But also currently right now as a union, we have been sharing a lot of. Gerald, I'm gonna have to get your Facebook page too. We've been sharing a lot of information in regards to helping. We're just really trying to really get our union message out there through the social media network, where we have these trainings every Tuesday in which we focus on trying to identify to Facebook non-union workers and workers, non-union workers, but also workers within our industries. That's something that we've been doing. But yeah, man, I just truly, appreciate the opportunity to be a voice on this network. This was awesome for me. It helped me release some things, but also, we still got work to do, and I look forward to doing that work. But also, with me, I'm a youth football coach. One of the things I've been doing with my kids in regards to this Black Lives Matter movement, yesterday I had a really real conversation with my players who I coach, just letting them know that, this day and age we living in is different, and we gotta carry ourselves strongly and confidently, but not live with fear. Fear is your greatest enemy, and courage is your greatest strength. That's one of my quotes that I talk to my kids about. But also, I had to open up to them and share, a little bit about who I am as a man. Like, I'm an organizer with the union, and I fight for what's right. I stand by my people. I stand by all people who need to be respected and who deserve to be respected.
Yeah. No, again, the honor is all ours, to you and the other panelists for sure. So thank you for sharing that. And I think one thing I want to quickly say, so that made me think of this, what you just said, Kwasi. One thing that we can do to really make sure we honor all workers, including, especially maybe even more so, essential workers, is being mindful of where we spend our money, to make sure that it is at businesses and with companies and institutions that really uphold fair standards, not only just for wages as such, but also in atmospheres and cultures, right? So just be mindful of that. Even though we're very quick to be back into open economies, this is an opportunity and time for us to really make sure that our monies are going toward places that are really being solid in how they treat their workers and their customers. So just want to put that. Two quick things and we're done. So of course, the elections are firmly underway right now. Of course, there's been talk about debates and concerns, of course, the challenges in the threats to the United States Postal Service for those who want to vote by mail. Everyone is stressing this, and CAIR-Chicago alongside Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition register and vote as early as possible. So we at CAIR-Chicago have created this Elections 2020 portal. That is the link there. You could also, of course, be sure for any updates as you see there. Be sure to text 50409 just to make sure that you are aware about what's happening with your mail-in ballots. But of course, there'll still be polling stations open. And so on that portal at CAIR-Chicago, you can see all the various links to plan your vote, see what's the ballots looking like, learn who the candidates are, not only for Congress, but also for the state legislature and judges. A very huge component of how our lives are functioning and impacted is the judges. So please, please be sure to know what's going on for your ballots, not only in November, but early voting, which also starts soon. Last but not least, for the next one, I'm actually going to allow my colleague Chris to talk more about this. Chris, take it away, man.
Hello, I'm Chris. I am a voter engagement and census fellow for the Illinois Muslim Civic Coalition. And here we just have this graphic inviting anybody that is interested in having a part in getting people out to vote, getting them registered, making sure they request their mail-in ballots. We're doing phone banking and we do it regularly throughout the week. And so we will be sharing with all of the participants, as well as posting in the Facebook comments where to sign up if you or anyone is interested. And then we also have paid opportunities so that you can make calls, get others activated out to the polls or requesting their mail-in ballots, and also make some money as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. So be sure to stay tuned for next month's 2020 Revisions event, which will definitely have some focus on the upcoming elections. Thank you so much for joining us again. Special thanks to Farheen, Kwasi, and Connor. Assalamu alaikum. Stay safe, be healthy, stay positive. Lead by faith, not by sight. Assalamu alaikum. Goodbye, everybody.